Yo, welcome back to the workshop. Yeah, my name is Gerald, and we're doing another one of these little car chats today. Now, today's been a pretty good day, I gotta say. Just another work day as always. I'm trying this out without having the light on so bright, just as an experiment, but there is a weird issue where if I raise my head, I'll be completely submerged in shadow. Well, I was having some thoughts about the Manchurian Candidate earlier. Not the movie, mind you, but the concept. You see, I've been playing through the Tsukihime remake, and this is going to be a bit of a spoiler scene. But there is this moment where Kohaku hands Shiki the knife. And this moment right there changes the entire context of the story. The second she hands him that knife, he's become activated. He is a sleeper cell. And he goes out, and less than a few hours later, he becomes a serial killer and kills Arcweed. He stalks her, he follows her, he gets triggered. The triggering comes in while he's at school, and the entire thing just overtakes him. Then, and he leaves the school, finds his target, follows her, assassinates her after finding out what apartment she's in, and then returns. Then he collapses, and mysteriously he wakes up back in his own home. This happens in both versions of Tsukihime, by the way. The original 2000 and the new remake. The new remake is a little more visceral. The old one is a little more matter of fact. It's very straightforward. And it just makes me think of how strange this actual device is for storytelling. The idea that you could activate a person and change their personality around so much. Now, I'm sure some of you aren't very happy with the fact I'm spoiling this scene in my little car chat so quick, but come on, dude. The game's been out for 26 years. You had your time. The remake's been out for nearly 4 to 5 years now. You've had your time to sit down and go through it. And also, it is the most famous scene. The anime's been out for like 19, 20 years. Basically, the purview of window for spoilers is long over, and that is just the opening act, okay? And I'm not going to go any deeper into what's happening in the story. I just find the concept so interesting that by saying a single word, you can cause this cascade resonance, an entire activation of the personality matrix. See, there's this concept I have. It's a concept that if any of you ever read my book that I talk about called The Memetic Disease. Now, mind you, my first book I've written is amateurish, to say the least. Yes, I like it, but it is a bit of an amateurish work. And a little cringe now I'm looking back on it, but hey, what can you do about it, right? But the Memetic Disease is the idea that words themselves are parasitic. Your mind is not actually something that you are made of. The mind is something that pilots the body, the vessel known as human. And therefore, we did not originally have language. Language itself is a disease that spreads people to people. But what is a memetic in the first place? So we could look at the Richard, was it Darwin, Dawkins, one or the other. Or he was the one who coined the term, and he was referring to the smallest possible amount of information. Now, when you see memes online, you think of the haha funny memes, or the okay, this has become a trend meme that does something. But originally, it's supposed to be the smallest piece of information that is then transmitted universally. The best example I have for you to explain the memetic disease is the concept of the letter A. To any English speaker, when you think of A, you think of apple. And when you think of apple, you think of red. The memetic A automatically carries the meaning of red and apple implicitly, but it also carries the meaning of alligator. Anything that starts with A now is conveyed within this tiny memetic that then forms its parasitic connections to everything else and therefore activates your thought. But the fact of the matter is that we originally didn't have a letter A, and then we originally didn't know what an apple was. So by finding this object and by naming this object, that is associating the meme to the object. It became a universal disease in the language, and then it spread from person to person orally. And words are a funny thing, man. And because, I'm a writer, I write for fun, and I do play with words a lot. And words mutate, words grow, words twist. And words have meanings that you don't even intend them to have meanings. It has entire intentions that you could not even realize that you're trying to convey by the very mention of the word. And this is why I bring back the idea of the Manchurian Candidate. A Manchurian Candidate is a sleeper cell agent. It's a person who has already been trained, preconditioned, brainwashed with whatever thing, and they have an activated state. The activated state is a item or a phrase or something that triggers them. This is the key to the idea of the Manchurian Candidate. In Shiki's case, is the whole reason I brought up the example of Shiki getting the knife from Kohaku. It was the knife. He got the knife, and he was told that it is from his father. One of these two things is the memetic. In Shiki's case, I suspect it's the knife itself. He got the knife, therefore it activated the dormant programming from his childhood to activate, and the second he detected something non-human, he went berserk. It is what it is. It's how that story is situated. But we all have our own memes. We all have our own things. We have our own triggers, don't we? All of us have these preconditioned traumas from our childhood that if we see something, and we automatically have a visceral reaction to. Take, for example, politics. Politics is full of memes. Every time you say, I'm part of the left, well, that's a meme right there. What does left mean? In reality, left does not mean a political left. It means the left direction. But why do we say left? Because the word left now has been associated with a political compass, and the political compass then simplifies the world into terms that humans like. Humans always simplify everything down to the most minute base information. And when they do this, it becomes a meme, and the meme forms a disease. And the disease can spread man to man. Now here's the real question I have for you, okay? If mankind is truly a vehicle that's being piloted by memes, it means that your parasitic consciousness is full of these memetic diseases in order to construct what you understand of reality. Then is reality not just our senses ingesting memes in order to interpret it? Does reality not exist outside of the mind if every single object that we encounter infects us with memes? Indeed, the first sin, the original sin, may not be that of the first sin is thought. Ultimately, if you want to look at it from a Christian view, the first crime that men had ever committed was thinking. And by the moment that they named something, they had created a memetic disease, and this memetic disease then spread from man to man. And this is something that, if you go from the Christian perspective, this was passed down from God. If you go from the secular perspective, this is mankind's way of interpreting the world around us, and therefore we must think. And there's also interesting cases also that different language speakers have different ways of viewing things, and it's inherent. You can see it. Some people might try to contest this, but for a good example is that if you look at Japanese, for the longest time they didn't really have a word for green. They didn't have the word Midori. It's a bit complicated why, but the real reason is the Japanese language evolved to have only really 4 colors. It had Akai, it had Aoi, Akai being reddish colors, Aoi being bluish colors, and then you have Shido, and what's the other one? Shido is white, and I think Kudo is black, right? Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It's been a while. But because you already formed this dichotomy, left, right, up, and down, absolutes, the mind loves these things. And then the mind latches onto it. And then you'll notice that if you ever go to Japan, you see the little crossing lights. The color is not quite green, but it's not quite blue either. It's some weird in between, some type of cerulean teal color. that is hard to define. Like, it's more greenish to me, but to them it's more bluish, and to be honest, I kind of see what they mean. It's the end result of a culture that does not have the original word. Mind you, they invented the word later on as an import from China and from other countries, and then they morphed it. In fact, a lot of Japanese comes from Chinese, if you didn't know that. Their characters do, but when you break it down, you go to old Chinese and old Japanese, you start to realize that Japanese is truly just a dialect of Chinese that broke off long time ago and eventually transmogrified into its own thing. I'm getting off topic. So, the key issue I've always been facing is that if memetic diseases is truly infectious, every time that we write, are we merely just infecting everybody with this? Are we literally throwing ourselves into a work and then possessing people? And words are so limiting too. It's like you have to describe an object with the words you have. You can try to come up with new words to describe the object, but nobody's going to make that association until they learn the new word associated with what you're saying. Therefore, you're stuck in this quandary of the memetic disease not being infectious enough, and it becomes like a bacteria that dies out. It only can exist within that single ecosystem. And even within yourself, if you do not make the full association, sorry, there's somebody flashing a red light over there. And how can you finally make this conjunction? Just like how the knife was the meme for Shiki in the example I gave you. That activated him, triggered him, and turned him into the serial killer that he really is. That's what Tsukihime is. It's a story about a serial killer. And perhaps I'll read it again on stream sometime. Perhaps I will talk more about the topic, but I'm just using this as a jumping off point. You have to understand, okay? There is something to this. The idea of the parasitic mind and the idea of memetic disease. And the way that transmission is done through language, through sight, through touch, through being near someone. Have you ever been near somebody and you've automatically known they're a foreigner? Not because they're a different skin color, okay? Like, for example, I'm a European, right? Yeah, of European descent. I'm an American. But I look more European than most, and people can kind of tell that I have not been from other parts of... there goes the red light. Dude. Okay. People can kind of tell that I have not been descended from a group of people who came to America earlier, but later on, because of the certain tells there are. There's a certain feel about you. There's a certain way you convey yourself. Man, come on, move your car. Go move it. See, this is kind of the issue with me trying to do these idea videos in the car like this, because you never know what's going to happen right outside, right? But I want each of you to sit down and think about that today. I want you to sit down, think about the memetic disease, think about the idea of the mind as a parasite, and tell me your thoughts, because... Oh, don't lean that way. I got stickers on the window. And tell me your thoughts about it, because I've really been pondering over this concept for such a long time. And in my book, I wrote about it as if memes shape reality, because if you come into an encounter with the foreign, then does it not become real to you? Like a good example is to most of us, and this is going to sound a little bit ignorant and a little bit callous when I say this, foreign countries don't exist. They don't. Other lands do not exist. Not objectively, anyways. We can see their media from there, which are a collection of memes that try to make it appear to us as if it exists. We can see their media, and perhaps we can meet the one or two people from that land. But until you step into that land, and that country may as well be a fairy tale to you. I know for a fact that for a solid 80% of Americans I've met, China is a fairy tale. Okay? They believe it's real, scientifically, rationally. They know it's a real place, but they honestly don't really know if it's there. I know it's there. I've been there. I've gone there myself. I've gone to China. I've gone to Korea. I've gone to Japan. I've been to Taiwan. I know each of these places exist, but does Europe truly exist? I know scientifically it's there. I know rationally it's there. But in my mind, it's still a fairy tale. It is my image of the place existing, not the actual place as it is. And that right there is a collection of memetic diseases that carry the image of what Europe is. And then I am merely using my own rationale to conjunction it. In other words, I'm using memes in order to understand memes, which then creates this solidification of an image of the place. But it might as well be fiction to me until I go, and I plan to go in the future. But either way, that's the concept I'm thinking about. Now, there is something interesting to that, because like the Manchurian Candidate, each of these little memes, each of these little idolations, left, right, up, down, on the letter A, the knife for Shiki, they all act as triggers. Triggers that automatically convey images, convey ideologies, convey meanings to us. And these words have so much more power than you may even begin to grasp. And why do they have such a power over you? Why do you see images in your mind the second you say one of these words? The second you hear one of these words, you are automatically making these associations. So, that's all for now. I've been Gerald. Thank you for tuning into today's random thought broadcast on the Workshopium. I'm probably not gonna do these over the weekend, and if I can, I'll make a gaming video on the weekend, which would be lovely. But hey, maybe it comes Monday morning, I'll have another one up, because I'm planning to do these every lunch break. Okay. All right, guys. Later.